This time, Donald Trump has the advantage that comes with power, like almost all U.S. presidents running for a second term. But the man who now occupies the White House seems ready to run again as a Washington outsider. And in launching his re-election campaign last night, Trump is returning to the messages that carried him to the Oval Office.
Last 2.5 years, we have been under siege. Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage. They want to destroy you, and they want to destroy our country. The only collusion was committed by the Democrats, the fake news media, and their operatives, and the people who funded the phony dossier, crooked Hillary Clinton, and the DNC.
Lock her up. Chants about Hillary Clinton. Condemnations of the Mueller investigation as a witch hunt, attacks on Democrats as radicals out to destroy America. All of those themes in tune with the rallies Trump has been staging for the past 2.5 years, and keeping with his norm-breaking brand, his re-election campaign launch has no new policy promises. But let's find out an early take on all of this. David Shribman, you know often from our program. He's a nationally syndicated columnist. His work appears in the Globe and Mail. He is the emeritus executive editor as well of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Pulitzer Prize winner at that. And I'm always glad to see him early from Pittsburgh this morning. Hello, David. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Good morning.
Good morning. I know that Donald Trump filed his re-election papers on the very day he was inaugurated, but now it's official. What was your overall takeaway listening to him last night?
Well, it just struck me, Heather, as the old-time religion, fake news, lock her up, immigrants, recitation of his record as the economy. That's his strongest point, I think. There were no new initiatives. What did strike me, Heather, was that this was not an outreach to undecided voters. This was an affirmation to people who already are decided. Presidents, when running for re-election or when running for the first time, often try to broaden their base. He wasn't doing that. In fact, he was trying to consolidate it, and some of the jibes he had last night may narrow it.
May narrow it. Interesting. I mean, we look in these pictures, 20,000 strong in Orlando last night. People had camped out to get into that rally. The base seems to be, that connection seems to be intact. Why do you think what he said might narrow the base, though?
Well, he didn't reach out. He didn't create even one new voter, I think, by doing that. But he did show us that he can do something that no Democrat can do. No Democrat can get 20,000 people into an arena anywhere, and that nonetheless, not even in, certainly not in Florida, by talking about moving the embassy to Jerusalem, by keeping the country so great. That was the phrase, keep it so great, showing no policies. He didn't really expand himself, and an electorate that itself is expanding. If he stays the same, he gets smaller.
It's interesting you suggest no Democrat could fill an arena that size or a venue that size, and yet the polls right now put him trailing all of the front-runner Democratic candidates, certainly Biden, certainly Sanders, even Elizabeth Warren at this point. And his approval ratings around 40, not enough likely to get him reelected at this point. What are the main challenges Donald Trump faces?
Well, he has to expand that electorate. He has to actually consolidate and build some support in the important states that are, we call swing states. These states he needs to worry about, of course, are Pennsylvania, where I am now, and Wisconsin, which he barely won last time, Michigan. And those three states all elected Democratic governors about 6 or 7 months ago. So those are places that he won last time and where he's more vulnerable than he ought to be as a president running for re-election. He has never once cracked 50% in approval. In fact, he's never once had more people approve him than disapprove of him. And that's not a position of strength, although he occupies a position of strength by virtue of being the president.
If he needs to win those three states, hold on to them in 2020, why did he then launch his campaign in Florida?
Well, it's a sign that they're a little worried about Florida. Florida, is kind of the inflection point of American politics. We had that huge dispute 19 years ago with hanging chads in an unresolved Florida election. It's an important state. It has all sorts of elements of the American electorate, and he knew he could actually fill that arena in Miami and Orlando. He could not fill it probably in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. He could not fill it in Wisconsin, and probably not in Detroit either.
I was just reading your most recent piece on Trump and his reelection, and I was intrigued by your overall premise that people ignored Donald Trump at their peril last time. This time, even though the numbers are low, opponents are taking him seriously.
Oh, he's being taken very, very seriously. First of all, he's the guy you have to knock off. Every conversation in North America begins and ends with either one of two topics, either the Raptors or the president. And now that the Raptors are fully crowned champions, every conversation in North America begins with and ends with Trump. And he is the beginning and ending of every political calculation, every political campaign in the country. He dominates the country in a way no president has done, really, I would say, since Franklin Roosevelt.
As we both have mentioned, the tone was similar, the grievances were similar, the enemies were similar. Based on what you heard last night, David, what kind of campaign is this one ahead likely to be?
All I can say to our viewers is that if you have some children, you ought to hide them. It's going to be a very, very tough campaign. It can be full of vitriol from both sides. Even if it's Joe Biden, who's running a kind of a conciliation campaign, it will be vicious. There'll be name-calling. There'll be more charges of locking everybody up. You can't imagine the kind of fireworks we're going to have. I've covered every presidential election since 1972, and we will see nothing. Nothing compares to this right now.
Looking forward to checking in with you now. It's officially underway. 500-plus days of all of this, David.
Well, we're going to have a great time for 500 days, Heather. I think we will.
Thank you so much. David Shribman up for us early
Bye-bye.
in Pittsburgh today.